The morning sun cast long shadows across the dusty main street of Cedar Ridge, Wyoming territory, but Anna Whitmore barely noticed. She stood on the weathered porch of her family's boarding house, her calloused hands gripping a worn carpet bag that held everything she owned in this world. The year was 1873, and at 24, she was about to become someone else's burden. "Best you wait inside," her sister-in-law Martha said from the doorway, not unkindly, but with that careful distance people adopted around her these days. "The wagon won't be here for another hour." Anna didn't move. She'd grown accustomed to being treated like cracked china, something once useful, now broken beyond repair. 3 years of marriage to Thomas Whitmore had ended with his death from consumption, leaving her with nothing but the shameful whispers that followed her like tumbleweeds in the wind. Barren, childless, cursed. The boarding house door creaked open again, and her brother Samuel emerged, his face set in that peculiar expression of guilt mixed with relief. "Anna," he began, then cleared his throat. "You understand this is for the best. Martha's expecting again, and with 4 mouths to feed already." "I understand perfectly," Anna said, her voice steady as prairie grass before a storm. She understood that a woman who couldn't bear children was worth less than a lame horse in a town where large families meant survival. She understood that Samuel's charity had run dry like the creek beds in August. "Monroe's a decent man," Samuel continued, warming to his justification. "Got himself a good spread 20 miles west of here. Lost his wife and boy to the fever 5 years back. He needs a woman to keep house." Anna almost laughed at the bitter irony. Jack Monroe. She'd heard the name whispered in the saloon when men thought their wives weren't listening. A man who'd buried himself alive out on that isolated ranch, speaking to no one, coming to town twice a year for supplies. The perfect place to hide away an embarrassment like her. "The church ladies arranged it all proper-like," Martha added, joining them on the porch. "Sent word through Reverend Phillips. Mr. Monroe agreed to the arrangement. Arrangement. Not marriage, not partnership. An arrangement. Like she was a piece of furniture being shipped west to fill an empty corner." Down the street, Anna caught sight of Mrs. Henderson and Mrs. Clark huddled together near the Mercantile, their heads bent close in conversation. When they noticed her watching, they quickly looked away, but not before Anna saw the satisfaction in their eyes. The church ladies had been particularly creative in their solution to the Anna problem. Send the barren woman to the hermit cowboy. 2 misfits canceling each other out like some cruel mathematical equation. "He doesn't know, does he?" Anna asked quietly. "About my condition." Samuel's face reddened. "Wasn't relevant to mention. Man needs a housekeeper, you need a home. Simple as that." But it wasn't simple, and they all knew it. This was their joke, their way of washing their hands of her while maintaining the facade of Christian charity. Send the infertile bride to the lonely cowboy and let them figure out their worthlessness together. The rattle of wheels on hard-packed earth announced the arrival of the freight wagon that would carry her to her new life. Old Pete Sullivan pulled up, his weathered face carefully neutral as he climbed down to help with her single trunk. "Morning, Miss Anna," he said, tipping his hat. She'd known Pete since she was a girl, had served him countless meals in the boarding house dining room. Now he couldn't quite meet her eyes. As Samuel hefted her trunk into the wagon bed, Anna became aware of how many people had suddenly found reasons to be on Main Street this morning. The blacksmith paused in his work, hammer suspended mid-swing. Young Mrs. Davies stood frozen outside the general store, her shopping forgotten. Even the saloon girls peered through the dusty windows of the Lucky Dollar, their painted faces unusually solemn. They'd all come to watch her exile. "You'll write," Martha said, though they both knew she wouldn't. What would be the point? To describe her failures in yet another household? Anna climbed onto the wagon bench beside Pete, her back straight despite the weight of humiliation pressing down on her shoulders. As they pulled away, she heard Tommy Henderson's young voice pipe up. "Ma, why's Miss Anna leaving?" "Hush now," Mrs. Henderson replied. "She's going where she belongs." Where she belonged. The words followed Anna as the wagon rolled past the church where she'd married Thomas with such hope, past the cemetery where he lay buried along with her dreams of children playing at her feet. The town grew smaller behind them, but the shame remained large as life, sitting between her and Pete like an unwelcome passenger. "Fine weather for traveling," Pete finally offered when they were well beyond the town limits. "Yes," Anna agreed, though she barely noticed the cloudless sky or the wildflowers dotting the prairie. Her mind was already racing ahead to that isolated ranch where a man who'd lost everything would be saddled with a woman who could give him nothing. The cosmic joke of it all might have made her laugh if she hadn't forgotten how. Instead, she gripped her carpetbag tighter and watched the endless grassland roll by, each mile taking her further from a life that had never wanted her and closer to a man who certainly wouldn't. But Anna Whitmore had learned to live with disappointment. She'd survived the diagnosis that had turned her from a beloved wife into a pitied widow. She'd endured 3 years of sideways glances and stopped conversations. She could survive this too, this banishment disguised as mercy, this cruel joke wrapped in the respectable paper of Christian duty. The sun climbed higher, and the town disappeared entirely behind the rolling hills. Somewhere ahead, a man named Jack Monroe was going about his daily business, unaware that the good church ladies of Cedar Ridge had decided to solve 2 problems with one loveless arrangement. "Storm coming," Pete said, glancing at the western horizon where dark clouds gathered like a promise of trouble. Anna followed his gaze. Let it come, she thought. After all, what was one more storm to someone who'd already lost everything worth losing? She was Anna Whitmore, the barren bride, the woman sent west as a joke. But storms had a way of changing things, and the West had its own rules about what made a person worthwhile. She didn't know it yet, but she was rolling toward a destiny that would make liars of them all. Those proper church ladies with their cruel solutions, her brother with his guilty relief, and everyone who'd decided her worth based on what her body couldn't do. For now, though, she was just a woman in a freight wagon, heading west under a darkening sky, carrying nothing but shame and a carpetbag full of carefully mended clothes. The joke was on her, or so everyone believed. Time would tell who'd have the last laugh. The storm Pete had predicted caught them 10 miles out of Cedar Ridge, turning the dusty trail into a river of mud. By the time they reached the unmarked path that led to Jack Monroe's ranch, both Anna and the old driver were soaked through, their clothes clinging like second skins. The late afternoon sun broke through the clouds just as Pete pulled the wagon to a stop before a wooden gate that had seen better days. "This is as far as I go," Pete said, not quite meeting her eyes. "Ranch house is another mile up that track." Anna stared at the narrow path that wound through the grassland like a scar. No turning back now. She climbed down from the wagon, her boots squelching in the mud, and helped Pete lower her trunk to the ground. "You sure about this, Miss Anna?" Pete asked quietly, finally looking at her directly. "I could tell folks you changed your mind, that you decided to head east to relatives." "I have no relatives in the east," Anna replied, gripping the handle of her carpetbag. "Thank you for the kindness, Pete, but this is where I'm meant to be." He didn't argue, just tipped his hat and clicked his tongue at the horses. Anna watched the wagon disappear back the way they'd come, taking with it her last connection to Cedar Ridge. Then she turned to face her future. The trunk was too heavy to carry the full mile, so she'd have to come back for it. Taking only her carpetbag, Anna started up the muddy track. The land here was different from town. Wilder, lonelier, with grass that grew tall enough to brush her skirts, and sky that seemed to press down like a weight. She'd walked half a mile when she saw the buildings rise from the prairie like ships from a golden sea. The ranch house squatted low against the horizon, built from logs gone silver with age and weather. A barn stood off to one side, its door hanging slightly askew, and a few outbuildings scattered about like afterthoughts. Smoke drifted from the chimney, the only sign of life in what looked like an abandoned homestead. Anna paused at the edge of the yard, suddenly aware of her bedraggled appearance. Her best traveling dress was mud-stained and wrinkled. Her hair had come loose from its pins, and she probably looked like something the storm had washed in, which she supposed wasn't far from the truth. The front door of the house opened before she could knock. The man who filled the doorway was nothing like she'd expected. Jack Monroe stood well over 6 feet, with shoulders that spoke of years wrestling cattle and weather. His dark hair hung past his collar, streaked with premature gray, though he couldn't be more than 35. But it was his eyes that stopped her cold, gray as winter sky and just as empty. "You're the woman from town," he said. Not a question. "Anna Whitmore," she managed, lifting her chin despite the water still dripping from her hair. He studied her for a long moment, taking in her sodden state with an expression that gave away nothing. "You're late. Expected you hours ago." "The storm? Where's your trunk?" "Back at the gate. It was too heavy." He brushed past her without another word, heading down the track with long strides that ate up the ground. Anna stood there, dripping on his porch, uncertain whether to follow or wait. She chose to wait, using the time to study her new home. The porch boards were warped and several were missing. Windows that should have had curtains stared blindly at the prairie. A garden plot near the house had gone to seed, overtaken by weeds and volunteer plants. Everything spoke of a man who'd stopped caring about anything beyond basic survival. Jack returned faster than she'd expected, her trunk balanced on one shoulder as if it weighed nothing. He set it down on the porch with surprising gentleness, then stood back, arms crossed. "Best get inside and dry off," he said. "Storm's not done yet." The interior of the house was worse than the outside. Clean enough, but bare as a monk's cell. A main room served as kitchen and living space, with a cold fireplace, a rough table with 2 chairs, and shelves that held a meager collection of dishes. A narrow hallway led to what she assumed were bedrooms. Everything was covered in a fine layer of dust, as if the house itself had been holding its breath for years. "Your room's down the hall, last door," Jack said, not looking at her. "Was my wife's sewing room. Cleared it out yesterday when I got word you were coming." Anna noticed he didn't say her name, his wife. She wondered if it hurt too much to speak it aloud. "Thank you," she said. "I'll just change into dry clothes and then nothing. You'll rest. Tomorrow's soon enough to figure out the rest." He turned away, busying himself at the stove. Anna took this as dismissal and carried her carpetbag down the hall. The room he'd indicated was small but clean, with a narrow bed, a washstand, and hooks on the wall for clothes. A single window looked out over the endless prairie. She changed quickly into her second-best dress, wrung water from her hair, and tried to pin it back into something respectable. When she returned to the main room, Jack had set a plate on the table, beans, cornbread, and what might have been salt pork. "Eat," he said, then took his own plate outside to the porch. Anna sat alone at the rough table, listening to the storm build again outside. The beans were oversalted, the cornbread dry, but she ate every bite. She was washing the dishes when Jack returned, bringing the smell of rain and tobacco with him. "We need to be clear about things," he said, standing by the door as if ready to bolt. "I agreed to this arrangement because Reverend Phillips is a hard man to refuse. But I'm not looking for a wife, not looking for anything except someone to keep house and mind their own business." "I understand," Anna said, her hands still in the dishwater. "Do you?" His gray eyes fixed on her with uncomfortable intensity. "This isn't town. Nearest neighbor is 8 miles east. You'll see another human face maybe once a month when I go for supplies. Can you handle that?" "I've been alone in a room full of people, Mr. Monroe. Real solitude can't be worse." Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe, or recognition. Then it was gone, shuttered behind that empty stare. "I rise at dawn, work till dark, breakfast at 5, dinner at noon, supper when the work's done. Laundry on Mondays, town trips first Saturday of the month. You'll have egg money from the chickens if I can get them laying again." "Questions?" "Just one," Anna said, turning to face him fully. "Why did you agree to this? Really?" He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "Ranch is falling apart. Can't keep up with it alone. And Phillips said you needed a place. Seemed like a fair trade. Roof over your head for help keeping things running." A fair trade, not a marriage, not a partnership. Just 2 broken people sharing space and dividing labor. At least he was honest about it. "Then we understand each other," Anna said. He nodded once, then headed for the hallway. "Storm should blow through by morning. I'll be in the barn early, got a cow about to calve. Coffee's in the tin by the stove." He paused at the entrance to the hall, his back to her. "That room, Sarah's sewing room. She died in the big bedroom. My boy too. Fever took them both same night, just so you know why that door stays closed." Then he was gone, leaving Anna alone in the lamplight. She finished the dishes slowly, letting her hands remember the familiar rhythm of domestic work. Outside, thunder rolled across the prairie like heaven's own freight wagon. Sarah. His wife's name had been Sarah, and they'd had a son, a family, a life, a future, all erased by fever in a single night. No wonder he'd buried himself out here, 20 miles from sympathy or small talk. Anna dried her hands on a threadbare towel and looked around the neglected kitchen. Tomorrow she'd start bringing life back to this tomb of a house. She'd scrub and mend and cook until her hands bled if necessary. Not because she was trying to replace Sarah or heal Jack Monroe's wounds. She knew better than that, but because work was what she had to offer, and work was what would keep her mind off her own failures. The storm raged on, but inside the house, a strange peace settled. 2 damaged souls, each nursing wounds that wouldn't heal, sharing space without pretense or false hope. It wasn't what either of them had planned for their lives, but it was what they had. Anna blew out the lamp and made her way to the small room that had once held another woman's dreams. Through the thin walls, she could hear Jack moving in his own room, the floorboards creaking under his weight. Then silence, broken only by rain on the roof and wind in the eaves. Her first night in her new home. No celebration, no wedding bed, no promises of forever. Just a business arrangement between 2 people the world had already written off. But as Anna settled into the narrow bed, listening to the storm, she felt something she hadn't expected. Relief. Here, at least, she could stop pretending to be whole. Here, her emptiness was matched by his, and neither had to apologize for what they couldn't give. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, but tonight, she was just Anna Whitmore, housekeeper to a grieving rancher, alone in a room that had belonged to a dead woman, 20 miles from anyone who'd ever called her cursed. It was, in its own strange way, the most honest night of her life. The first month passed in a blur of back-breaking work and careful distances. Anna rose before dawn each day, her hands learning the rhythm of this new life, kneading bread, mending fences, coaxing life from the neglected garden. Jack kept his word about minding their own business, speaking only when necessary, eating half his meals on the porch regardless of weather. But the ranch began to change under Anna's hands. The kitchen windows sparkled for the first time in years. New curtains, sewn from flour sacks she'd bleached in the sun, brought warmth to the bare rooms. The garden, freed from weeds and given proper attention, yielded late tomatoes and hardy squash. Even the chickens, won over by regular feeding and a repaired coop, began laying again. "Coffee's better lately," Jack said one morning, the most words he'd strung together in a week. "Found some chicory growing wild by the creek," Anna replied, not looking up from the biscuits she was cutting. "My mother used to add it for flavor." He made a sound that might have been approval, then headed out to check the cattle. It was progress, measured in teaspoons rather than cups, but progress nonetheless. The turning point came on a crisp October morning when Anna discovered the fence around the vegetable garden had been reinforced overnight. New posts stood straight and true, the wire stretched tight. Jack's work, she recognized his precise style, done in secret like a gift he couldn't bring himself to give directly. She returned the favor by organizing the chaos in the barn, creating a system for tools that had been scattered like thoughts from a troubled mind. Neither mentioned these small kindnesses, but something eased between them, like a knot slowly loosening. One evening, as purple dusk painted the prairie, Anna found Jack sitting on the porch steps, staring at something in his hands. A piece of carved wood, a half-finished toy horse. Was making it for... He stopped, jaw tightening. "What was his name?" Anna asked softly, settling on the step below him. "Timothy. Tim." The words came out rusty, unused. "Would have been 8 come Christmas." Anna said nothing, just sat with him as the stars emerged one by one. After a while, Jack set the toy aside and went in. But he'd said his son's name aloud, and that was something. The next morning, she found him already at work in the garden, dividing the potatoes for winter storage. "Could use some help," he said without looking up. It was the first time he'd asked rather than simply expected. They worked side by side through the cool morning, their movements finding a rhythm. Jack showed her how to separate the seed potatoes, how to pack them in sand for keeping. His hands, she noticed, were gentle with growing things, at odds with their scarred roughness. Sarah loved this garden, he said suddenly. Grew flowers along with vegetables. Said beauty was just as necessary as bread. She was right, Anna replied, brushing dirt from a particularly large potato. I pulled them all up after, he continued, as if he hadn't heard. The flowers. Couldn't stand seeing them bloom when she couldn't see them. Anna's hands stilled. Maybe it's time to plant some again. Not for her, she had her flowers, but for now, for the living. Jack looked at her then, really looked at her for the first time since she'd arrived. You always this practical about grief? I've had practice, Anna said simply. That afternoon, while Jack worked with the cattle, Anna walked to the creek where wildflowers still bloomed despite the latening season. She gathered seeds carefully, black-eyed Susans, prairie roses, wild lupine. Come spring, she'd plant them along the garden fence. Not Sarah's flowers, but new ones. A small defiance against the tyranny of loss. The first freeze came early, catching them unprepared. Anna woke to find frost etching patterns on her window, and her breath visible in the cold room. The house had no proper heating beyond the kitchen stove and the fireplace in the main room. She dressed quickly, layering on every warm thing she owned, and hurried to start the fire. Jack was already up, hauling in armloads of wood. Going to be a hard winter, he said. Need to move the cattle to the south pasture today, closer to shelter. I'll help, Anna offered. He started to refuse, then seemed to think better of it. Can you ride? Well enough. That was how Anna found herself mounted on a steady mare named Buttercup, helping drive 30 head of cattle across the frozen ground. The work was hard, cold, and exhilarating. When a young steer broke from the herd, she surprised herself by wheeling Buttercup around and driving it back into line. You ride better than well enough, Jack observed, pulling up beside her. My father raised horses before he took to running a boarding house, Anna said, patting Buttercup's neck. I grew up in the saddle. Full of surprises, aren't you? It was the closest thing to a compliment he'd given her. Anna felt warmth that had nothing to do with the exercise. That night, with the cattle safely pastured and a storm brewing on the horizon, they ate supper together at the kitchen table. The silence between them had changed from strained to companionable, filled with the small sounds of a shared meal. Thank you, Jack said suddenly. For today, been trying to move that herd alone for a week. We're partners in this arrangement, Anna reminded him. Partners help each other. He studied her across the table, lamp alight, casting shadows that made him look younger, less guarded. That what we are? Partners? Aren't we? He didn't answer, but later, when the storm hit with fierce intensity, he built up the fire in the main room and brought out extra blankets. No sense freezing in separate rooms, he said gruffly. Sarah and I used to sleep by the fire on nights like this. They made separate bedrolls on opposite sides of the fireplace, maintaining proper distance. But as the storm raged outside, they talked, really talked, for the first time. Jack spoke of his childhood in Missouri, of coming west with dreams bigger than sense. Anna told him about growing up in her family's boarding house, about her marriage to Thomas, even about the doctor's verdict that had changed everything. Doesn't make you less of a woman, Jack said quietly when she finished. Sarah lost 2 before Tim came along. Near broke her both times. Having children or not having them, that's not what makes a person whole. Anna felt tears sting her eyes. It was the first time anyone had said such a thing to her. What makes a person whole then? She asked. Jack was quiet for a long moment, watching the fire. Being useful, I reckon. Having work that matters. Someone to share the load with, maybe. The storm blew itself out by morning, leaving a world transformed by snow. Jack was already up when Anna woke, coffee made and warming on the stove. He handed her a cup without speaking, but his fingers brushed hers in the exchange, and neither pulled away quite as quickly as they might have a month before. Fence in the north pasture needs fixing, he said. Storm probably made it worse. I'll pack lunch, Anna offered. We can make a day of it. We, he repeated, as if testing the word. then nodded. All right. They worked through the bitter cold, replacing posts, stretching wire, their breath forming clouds in the frigid air. When Anna's hands grew too numb to hold the tools, Jack noticed without her saying anything. He pulled off his own gloves and handed them to her, waving off her protests. Got thicker skin than you, he said. Keep working. Sooner we finish, sooner we get warm. By the time they headed back, the sun was low and painting the snow-covered prairie in shades of rose and gold. They rode side by side, comfortable in their silence, and Anna realized something had shifted between them. They were no longer two strangers sharing space. They were something else. Not husband and wife, perhaps, but partners. Real partners. That night, as she prepared supper, Jack brought in an armload of wood without being asked. He fixed the loose board on the porch she'd been meaning to mention. Small things, but they spoke louder than words. This was how he showed care, through actions rather than declarations. Winter's going to be long, he said over supper, but I reckon we'll manage. Together, Anna added. He met her eyes across the table, and for the first time since she'd arrived, Jack Monroe smiled. It was a small thing, barely more than a lifting of the corners of his mouth, but it transformed his face entirely. Together, he agreed. Outside, the wind howled across the prairie. But inside the small ranch house, two wounded souls were building something new. Not love, perhaps, not yet, but trust, understanding. A partnership forged in shared work and quiet acceptance. It was more than either had dared hope for when this arrangement began. And it was enough. For now, it was enough. December brought the worst blizzard anyone could remember. For 3 days, snow fell in thick curtains, burying the ranch under white drifts that reached the windows. Jack and Anna worked tirelessly to keep the cattle alive, hauling hay through waist-deep snow, breaking ice on water troughs, checking for signs of frostbite or illness among the herd. On the third night, exhausted and half-frozen, they collapsed by the fire with bowls of thin soup, all Anna could manage with their dwindling supplies. The storm had caught them before the monthly town run, and the pantry was near bare. "Should have gone last week," Jack muttered, staring into his bowl. "Saw the signs, but thought we had time." "We'll manage," Anna said, though her own stomach cramped with hunger. "Storm can't last forever." A sound cut through the howling wind, sharp, percussive. Jack's head snapped up. "That's gunfire." 3 shots, evenly spaced, the universal signal for distress on the frontier. "Could be travelers caught in the storm," Anna said. "Or could be trouble using the storm as cover." Jack was already reaching for his rifle. "Either way, can't ignore it. I'm coming with you. Like hell you are. Jack Monroe, you listen to me." Anna stood, matching his stubborn glare with one of her own. "If it's travelers, they'll need care I can provide. If it's trouble, you'll need someone watching your back. Either way, you're not going alone." They faced off across the small room, wills clashing like flint on steel. Finally, Jack nodded curtly. "Get the shotgun. You remember how to use it?" "Better than you might think." They bundled into every layer they could find, Jack carrying his rifle and a lantern, Anna gripping the shotgun Thomas had taught her to shoot years ago. The world outside was a white nightmare, snow driving sideways, visibility measured in feet rather than yards. Jack led the way, following the fence line toward where the shots had sounded. Anna stayed close, her heart hammering against her ribs. The cold bit through their clothes like hungry teeth, and she could barely feel her feet in her boots. A dark shape loomed through the snow. Horses, 4 of them, huddled against the fence. And figures, human figures, pressed against the horses for warmth. "Hello, the camp," Jack called out, rifle ready but not raised. "Thank God!" A woman's voice, raw with relief. "Please, we need help." As they drew closer, Anna could make out the group, 2 men and 2 women, all looking half-frozen. One of the men was slumped against his horse, barely conscious. "Got caught when the storm hit," one of the women explained through chattering teeth. "Ben's hurt. Horse threw him. Think his arms broke." "Let's get them inside," Anna said, already moving to help support the injured man. Jack hesitated for just a moment, a lifetime of caution warring with basic human decency. Then he slung his rifle over his shoulder and took the injured man's other side. House is this way. Stay close. The journey back seemed endless, fighting through drifts with their half-frozen guests, stumbling along. But finally, blessed warmth enveloped them as they crowded into the small house. Anna immediately took charge, her boarding house experience serving her well. Get those wet clothes off, all of you. Jack, build up the fire. I'll heat water. The next hour was controlled chaos. Anna splinted the injured man's arm, with strips torn from her petticoat and barrel staves from the kindling box. She heated what soup remained and stretched it with water and the last of their cornmeal. Jack hauled in more wood and helped the men into dry clothes from his own meager wardrobe while Anna saw to the women. Name's Frank Morrison, the uninjured man said once they were all gathered around the fire. This is my brother Ben, our wives Mary and Catherine. We're heading to Oregon Territory. Got separated from our wagon train 2 days back. In December? Jack's voice held disbelief. Frank's face darkened. Wagon master decided to push through despite the weather, said we were behind schedule. When Ben got hurt, he left us behind. Left you to die, Jack said flatly. Jack! Anna's quiet voice held a warning. These people didn't need judgment. They needed help. As the night wore on, the storm began to ease. The travelers shared what food they had, dried fruit, hardtack, a small bag of coffee beans that seemed like treasure. Stories were exchanged around the fire, and Anna found herself laughing for the first time in months at Mary's account of trying to cook over a campfire in a windstorm. "Have you two been married long?" Catherine asked, looking between Jack and Anna with curious eyes. "We're not," Anna began, but Jack interrupted. "Few months," he said simply. "Still getting used to it." Anna felt heat rise in her cheeks that had nothing to do with the fire. It was the first time either of them had claimed their arrangement as anything more than business. "You're lucky," Mary said softly, her hand on her husband's good arm. "Having someone to weather storms with, that's everything out here." Later, with their guests bedded down wherever space could be found, Jack and Anna found themselves alone in the kitchen. She was banking the fire for the night when he spoke. "You did good tonight. Real good." "We both did," Anna replied. "Made a good team." "That's what I meant earlier," he said quietly. "About being married. Didn't seem right to explain. Whatever this is, and maybe—" A crash from outside cut him off. Jack grabbed his rifle and was out the door before Anna could blink. She seized the shotgun and followed, finding him standing over a figure sprawled in the snow near the barn. "Don't shoot!" The man raised his hands, his voice slurred. "Just looking for my friends. Saw horses." But something was wrong. This man's clothes were too fine for a traveler, his horse too well fed. And his eyes, when they flicked between Jack and Anna, held a calculating coldness that made her skin crawl. "Friends are inside," Jack said evenly. "You can join them." "Much obliged." The man struggled to his feet, swaying slightly. "Name's Cole. Cole Anderson." Anna caught Jack's slight tensing. She'd heard that name before, whispered in the boarding house when men thought no one was listening. Cole Anderson ran with the Wallace gang, rustlers and worse who plagued the territory. They had no choice but to bring him inside. Turning away even an outlaw in this weather would be murder. But Anna saw Jack position himself where he could watch the door, saw him check that his rifle was within reach. Cole made a show of being grateful, of warming himself by the fire, but his eyes never stopped moving, counting people, noting valuables, measuring threats. The other travelers seemed oblivious, exhausted from their ordeal, but Anna felt danger coiling in the room like a rattlesnake. "Quite a spread you got here," Cole said conversationally. "Must be hard, just the two of you managing it all." "We manage fine," Jack replied. "Still, lot of cattle for two people. Easy for some to go missing in weather like this. Course, neighbors help each other out here, don't they? Share the wealth, so to speak." The threat was subtle but clear. Anna saw Frank Morrison's eyes narrow as he began to understand what kind of man they were sheltering. She moved casually to stand near the kitchen knives, her movements drawing Cole's attention. "My husband's known for his marksmanship," she said pleasantly, as if discussing the weather. "Won the county shoot 3 years running. Why, just last month he dropped a wolf at 300 yards. One shot, clean through the eye. It was a lie, of course. She had no idea if Jack could shoot that well, but Cole didn't know that, and she saw uncertainty flicker across his features. "Impressive," Cole said slowly. "Man like that probably has friends. Other folks who'd notice if something happened?" "The whole valley," Jack agreed, playing along. "Good people. Look out for each other." The night stretched taut as wire. Anna didn't dare sleep, and she knew Jack wouldn't either. They sat by the fire, weapons close, while their uninvited guest dozed fitfully and the storm finally blew itself out. Dawn came pale and cold, revealing a world buried in snow. Cole was the first to leave, claiming urgency to find the rest of his party. He rode off without looking back, and Anna didn't breathe properly until he disappeared over a rise. "He'll be back," Jack said grimly, "with friends. Then we'd better be ready." Frank Morrison, arm splinted but mobile, overheard. "We're not leaving you to face that alone, not after what you did for us." "You've got injured folk," Jack protested. "And you've got neighbors now," Frank said firmly. "Temporary ones maybe, but neighbors all the same." They spent the morning preparing, checking weapons, fortifying windows, planning fields of fire. Anna found herself strangely calm. After months of running from her shame, facing physical danger felt almost clean. But Cole Anderson didn't return that day or the next. Maybe the storm had driven his gang too far afield. Maybe he'd decided a small ranch wasn't worth the trouble. Or maybe he was waiting, biding time. On the third day, with the weather clear and the trails passable, the Morrisons prepared to leave. They decided to winter in Cedar Ridge rather than push on to Oregon. "We owe you our lives," Mary said, embracing Anna. "If you ever need anything." "You've already given us something," Anna replied. "Reminded us we're not alone out here." As the travelers rode away, Jack stood beside Anna on the porch, watching until they disappeared from sight. "You called me your husband," Anna said quietly. "You called me a marksman who'd won shooting contests. We protected each other. That's what partners do." They stood there as the sun climbed higher, painting the snow-covered land in shades of silver and gold. Something had changed during that long, dangerous night. They'd faced a threat together, stood side by side against danger, and in claiming each other, even in lies meant to protect, they'd acknowledged a truth neither had been ready to speak. "Storms passed," Jack said finally. "This one has," Anna agreed. "But there'll be others." "Reckon so." He glanced at her and she saw something new in his gray eyes. Not love, not yet, but possibility. "Good thing we're partners, then." "Good thing," she echoed. They went inside together, leaving the door unbarred. After all, they'd learned something important. When trouble came calling, they wouldn't face it alone. The knock came just after dawn on a February morning, so soft Anna almost missed it over the sound of the coffee boiling. Jack had already gone to the barn, leaving her alone in the warming kitchen. She opened the door to find a young woman swaying on the porch, her face gray with exhaustion, a bundle clutched against her chest. "Please," the woman whispered, and then her knees buckled. Anna caught her before she hit the porch boards, guided her inside to a chair by the stove. The bundle in the woman's arms stirred and let out a thin wail, a baby, barely weeks old by the look of it. "Jack!" Anna called sharply, but he was already coming, drawn by the infant's cry. He stopped dead in the doorway, his face going pale at the sight. "Get blankets," Anna ordered, taking charge, "and heat some milk." The woman was burning with fever, her breathing shallow and labored. Anna peeled back the travel-stained shawl to reveal a young face, perhaps 20 years old, marked by illness and hard travel. "My baby," the woman gasped, pressing the infant toward Anna. "Please, take care of my baby." "What's your name?" Anna asked gently, accepting the child into her arms. The weight of it, so light, so precious, made her heart constrict. Rose Sullivan," she coughed, specks of blood on her lips. "Come from Kansas, looking for his father, but—" Another coughing fit shook her thin frame. Jack returned with blankets and warmed milk, his movements careful, controlled. But Anna saw his hands tremble as he helped settle Rose on a makeshift bed near the fire. "The father?" Anna prompted gently. "Dead," Rose whispered. "Found out last week. Mining accident in Colorado." Her fevered eyes fixed on Anna's face. "Got no one else, no family, been walking for days." The baby fussed, and Anna instinctively rocked it, humming low in her throat. She'd never held an infant before, had avoided them in town, unable to bear the reminder of what she'd never have. But now, with this tiny life in her arms, something inside her cracked open. "What's the baby's name?" she asked. "William, after his daddy." Rose's voice was fading. "He's a good baby, hardly cries, just needs someone." They did what they could for Rose Sullivan, but the consumption had gone too far. She lingered 3 days, growing weaker despite Anna's careful nursing. Jack rode to town for the doctor, but he only confirmed what they already knew. The young mother was dying. On the last night, Rose reached for Anna's hand with surprising strength. "I got nothing to leave him. No money, no kin. But you? I seen how you hold him, how you look at him. Rose, promise me." Her grip tightened. "Promise you'll raise him. Not to an orphanage, not to strangers who won't love him. Promise." Anna looked at the baby sleeping in the drawer they'd fashioned into a cradle. His tiny fists curled like flower buds, then at Jack, standing silent in the shadows. "I promise," she whispered. Rose Sullivan died just before dawn, a smile on her lips. They buried her on the hill behind the house, marking the grave with a simple wooden cross. Jack spoke a few words from the Bible while Anna held the baby, who seemed to sense the solemnity of the moment and stayed quiet. "What do we do now?" Anna asked as they walked back to the house. "We're not, legally." "I'll ride to town tomorrow," Jack said. "Talk to Judge Patterson. See what needs doing to make it proper." "Jack," she stopped, making him turn to face her. "This isn't what you agreed to, taking on another man's child, especially with me being—" "Don't." His voice was rough. "Don't say it. That baby needs a home. We've got one." Seemed simple enough to me. But it wasn't simple, and they both knew it. That night, Anna sat by the fire with William in her arms, marveling at his perfect fingers, the way his mouth worked in his sleep as if dreaming of milk. Jack watched from across the room, his expression unreadable. "You look natural with him," he said finally. "I never thought I'd—" Anna's voice broke. "All those years, wanting this so badly it ate me hollow. And now, life's got a strange sense of humor," Jack agreed. "Sarah used to say God's timing ain't our timing." It was the first time he'd quoted his late wife, and Anna felt the trust in that small offering. "Are you sure about this, Jack? Taking on a baby that's not yours with a woman who's not really your wife?" He was quiet for a long moment. Then he crossed the room and knelt beside her chair, reaching out to touch William's downy head with one calloused finger. "Told you before, having children or not having them don't make a person whole, but loving them might." He looked up at her, and she saw something fierce and protective in his eyes. "This boy needs parents. Maybe we need him too." The next weeks were a blur of adjustment. Anna had helped with babies at the boarding house, but having sole responsibility was different. William needed feeding every few hours, changing, soothing when he cried. She walked the floor with him at night, singing half-remembered lullabies, while Jack took turns when she was too exhausted to stand. They fell into a rhythm, Anna tending the baby while Jack handled the ranch work, then Jack taking William while Anna cooked and cleaned. Sometimes she'd find them in the barn, Jack talking to the infant about cattle and weather while he worked, William bundled safe in a sling across his chest. "He's a good listener," Jack said when she teased him about it. "Don't interrupt like some folks." The transformation in Jack was subtle but real. The shadows in his eyes lightened when he held William. He started whistling again while he worked, songs Anna half recognized from church. And sometimes, when he thought no one was looking, she caught him smiling at the baby with such tenderness it made her throat tight. The legal matters proved surprisingly simple. Judge Patterson, an old friend of Jack's father, was sympathetic to their situation. "Rose Sullivan had no living relatives we can find," he said, reviewing the papers. "You're willing to take the child? Provide for him?" "Yes, sir," Jack said firmly. "And you, Mrs. Monroe, you're in agreement?" Anna startled at the title but nodded. "Yes, we want to raise him." The judge's eyes twinkled. "Well then, I see no problem. I'll draw up the adoption papers. Young William here is lucky to have found you." But not everyone was so accepting. Their first trip to town with the baby caused a sensation. Women who'd whispered about Anna's barrenness now whispered about this mysterious child. How convenient, they said, that a baby appeared just when the barren woman needed one. "Let them talk," Jack said when Anna reported the gossip. "They've got nothing better to do." But Anna saw the way his jaw tightened, the protective way he positioned himself between her and the worst of the gossips when they went for supplies. One day, Mrs. Henderson cornered Anna outside the Mercantile. "Where exactly did this baby come from? Seems mighty strange, a dying woman just happening upon your doorstep." "Nothing strange about it." Jack's voice came from behind Anna. He'd appeared silent as a shadow, William sleeping against his shoulder. "Woman was sick, needed help. We gave it. Now we're raising her boy. Anyone who's got a problem with that can take it up with me." Mrs. Henderson retreated, but Anna knew the talk would continue. It always did in small towns. That night, as they sat by the fire with William sleeping between them in his cradle, Anna voiced her fears. "What if someone challenges the adoption, claims we're not fit parents?" "Then we fight," Jack said simply. "This is our son now. Anyone tries to take him, they'll have to go through me." Our son. The words hung in the air between them, precious as gold dust. "Jack," Anna said softly. "What are we doing? Playing house like children?" He looked at her across the sleeping baby, his gray eyes steady. "Nothing childish about it. We're raising a boy who needs us, making a family the best way we know how." He paused, then added quietly, "Maybe not the family either of us planned, but a family all the same." Anna felt tears slip down her cheeks. "I don't know how to thank you for accepting him, for accepting this." "No thanks needed." Jack's voice was gruff. "Boy's lucky to have you for a mother. Natural or not, you love him. Anyone can see that." "And you?" Anna asked. "He's lucky to have you too. You're good with him, Jack. Patient, gentle." "Had practice once," he said quietly. "Thought I'd forgotten how, but it comes back." They sat in comfortable silence, watching William sleep. Outside, snow began to fall again, but inside their small house, warmth and contentment reigned. They'd built something unexpected here. A family born not of blood, but of choice, of need, of slowly growing affection. "Tomorrow I'll start teaching him about the ranch," Jack said. "Never too early to learn." Anna laughed softly. "He's barely 2 months old. Perfect age to start. By the time he's walking, he'll know every horse by name." "And I'll teach him his letters," Anna added. "And how to tend the garden, how to make bread." "Boy's going to be right smart, with you teaching him." They were making plans, Anna realized. Real plans for a real future, the three of them together. The woman who couldn't have children, the man who'd lost his, and the baby who'd lost everything. Somehow, they'd found each other. "I should check the stock," Jack said, but he made no move to rise. "In a minute," Anna agreed, equally reluctant to break the spell. They sat there as the fire burned low, two people who'd started as strangers, now bound together by a small boy who'd arrived on a winter morning and changed everything. It wasn't the life either had imagined, but perhaps that made it all the more precious. William stirred in his sleep, one tiny hand reaching out. Anna touched his fingers gently, and he grasped her thumb with surprising strength. Beside her, Jack leaned closer, his shoulder touching hers. A family. Against all odds and expectations, they'd become a family. Spring arrived late that year, but when it came, it brought trouble wearing an expensive suit. Anna first saw him through the kitchen window, a tall man climbing down from a hired carriage, his clothes too fine for ranch country, his movements too smooth for honest work. "Jack," she called quietly, not wanting to wake William from his afternoon nap. "Someone's coming." Jack emerged from the barn, taking in the stranger with narrowed eyes. He moved to stand beside Anna on the porch, subtly positioning himself between her and the visitor. "Mr. Monroe?" The man's voice was cultured, Eastern educated. "My name is Charles Hartley. I believe you have something that belongs to me." Anna's blood turned cold. She instinctively moved closer to the house, nearer to where William slept peacefully in his cradle. "Nothing here belongs to you, mister," Jack said evenly. Hartley smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I'm afraid that's where you're wrong. You see, I've been searching for my son, born 3 months ago to a woman named Rose Sullivan." "Rose is dead," Anna said, finding her voice. "She died of consumption." "Yes, I heard. Tragic." Hartley's tone suggested it was anything but. "However, that doesn't change the fact that the child is mine. I have documentation proving paternity, and I'm prepared to take this to court." He produced a leather folder, extracting papers covered in official seals. Jack didn't move to take them. "Convenient. You showing up now," Jack observed. "Where were you when Rose was sick and starving? When she was walking through winter storms trying to find help?" Hartley's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something cold underneath. "I was unaware of her condition. We had a brief liaison in Kansas. I only recently learned of the child's existence." "And now you want him," Anna stated. It wasn't a question. "He's my son, my heir. I've recently come into considerable property back east. The boy would have advantages with me: education, society, opportunities you certainly can't provide." Anna felt Jack tense beside her. She placed a hand on his arm, a silent warning. "We've legally adopted William," she said. "Judge Patterson approved it. We're his parents now." Hartley's smile widened. "Ah, but you see, an adoption completed without the biological father's consent can be challenged, especially when that father has means and standing." He glanced around the modest ranch with barely concealed disdain. "I think any court would agree the child would be better off with me." "Get off my land," Jack said quietly. The very quietness of it was more menacing than a shout. "I'll be staying in town," Hartley said, unperturbed. "At the Grand Hotel. I suggest you consider my offer carefully. I'm willing to compensate you for your trouble. Say, $500? More than enough to buy new stock, improve this quaint little homestead." "You think we'd sell him?" Anna's voice shook with rage. "Like he's cattle?" "I think you'll do what's best for the child," Hartley replied smoothly. "A boy needs advantages in this world: education, connections, not a life of manual labor on a failing ranch." Jack stepped forward, and Hartley stepped back despite himself. "You've said your piece. Now leave, and don't come back without the sheriff." After Hartley's carriage disappeared, they stood frozen on the porch. Inside, William began to cry, as if sensing the disturbance. Anna rushed to him, gathering him into her arms, holding him tight against her chest. "He can't take him," she said fiercely. "I won't let him." Jack paced the small room like a caged wolf. "Man like that, with money and lawyers, we need help." They found it in unexpected places. Judge Patterson, when they rode to town the next day, was grimly encouraging. "Hartley's already been to see me," he said, "flashing money and making threats. But the law's clear. You adopted that boy legal and proper. The mother entrusted him to you with her dying breath. That carries weight. But if he really is the father—" Anna couldn't finish the sentence. "Being a father's more than blood," the judge said firmly. "It's showing up. It's sacrifice. It's love. You two have been that boy's parents when it mattered. That counts for something in my court." Word spread quickly through Cedar Ridge. By afternoon, the town had chosen sides. Surprisingly, many stood with Jack and Anna. The Morrisons, still wintering in town, were vocal in their support. Even Mrs. Henderson, the worst gossip, declared that money don't make a man fit to raise a child. But Hartley had his supporters too, mostly those impressed by his wealth and promises of investment in the town. The Grand Hotel's saloon became his unofficial headquarters, where he held court and spun tales of the opportunities he could provide young William. The legal maneuvering began immediately. Hartley's lawyer, imported from Denver, filed papers challenging the adoption. Jack and Anna were forced to hire their own attorney, using money they'd saved for spring planting. "We'll need character witnesses," their lawyer, young Tom Brennan, explained. "People who can testify to your fitness as parents." The list was shorter than Anna would have liked, but longer than she'd feared. Dr. Matthias agreed to testify about their care during Rose's illness. Reverend Phillips offered to speak to their moral character. The Morrisons promised to travel back from their new homestead to support them. But the most unexpected ally came in the form of Marcus Cole, owner of the Mercantile. "That Hartley fellow's been asking questions," he told them one afternoon, "about your finances, your habits. Even tried to bribe my clerk for information about what you buy." He spat tobacco juice with obvious disgust. Don't like his type. All smooth talk and no substance. As the court date approached, the pressure intensified. Anna found threatening notes slipped under the door, warning her to do the right thing. Jack's fences were cut twice, cattle scattered. One night, shots were fired near the barn, not hitting anything but sending a clear message. "He's trying to break us," Jack said, repairing the fence for the third time. "Make us think it's not worth fighting." "Then he doesn't know us very well," Anna replied. William balanced on her hip as she handed Jack nails. The baby had grown in the months since his arrival, becoming rounder, more alert. He recognized their voices now, reaching for them with chubby hands, his face lighting up when they entered a room. The thought of losing him was unbearable. One evening, as Anna was closing up the chicken coop, Hartley appeared. She hadn't heard his approach, and his sudden presence made her heart race. "Mrs. Monroe," he said pleasantly. "I thought perhaps we could speak privately." "My husband is in the north pasture. I made sure of that." His smile was predatory. "I want you to understand something. I always get what I want. Always. This child, my son, represents something important to me. Legacy. Continuation of the Hartley name." "He has a name," Anna said. "William Monroe." Hartley's face darkened. "You're being foolish. I could make your life very comfortable. $1,000. Enough to start fresh somewhere, maybe even adopt a child legally next time." "Get out!" Anna's voice was steel. "Get out before I get my shotgun." "Think about it," he said, backing away. "A woman like you, barren, cast off by her own family. What future can you really offer him? With me, he'd have everything." After he left, Anna sank onto the porch steps, shaking. Not from fear, but from rage. How dare he throw her past in her face? How dare he reduce William to a possession, a symbol of his virility? Jack found her there when he returned. She told him everything, watched his face turn to stone. "I should have been here," he said. "No." Anna stood, chin raised. "I handled it. I'm not some delicate flower, Jack Monroe. That man wants a fight? He'll get one." The court date came on a brilliant May morning. The courthouse was packed, the whole town turning out for the drama. William, dressed in his best outfit, sewn by Anna from one of her old dresses, gurgled happily in her arms, unaware of the battle about to be fought over him. Hartley's lawyer painted a picture of privilege and opportunity, Eastern schools, social connections, a life of ease. He produced documents suggesting Rose had been of questionable moral character, implying she'd been with multiple men. "Objection!" Tom Brennan shot to his feet. "The deceased isn't here to defend herself." "Sure. Sustained," Judge Patterson said sternly. "Keep to the facts, counselor." When it was their turn, the witnesses spoke simply but powerfully. Dr. Matthias described Anna's devoted care of the dying woman and her natural affection for the child. The Morrisons testified about the couple's courage during the blizzard, their partnership and mutual support. But it was Reverend Phillips who provided the most damning testimony against Hartley. "I received a telegram from a colleague in Kansas," he said. "Mr. Hartley is already married, has been for 10 years. His wife is currently residing in Boston with their 3 children. The courtroom erupted. Hartley's lawyer objected furiously, but the damage was done. The man who claimed to want his son for legacy had been exposed as an adulterer who'd abandoned the child's mother. "Your Honor," Tom Brennan said when order was restored, "we submit that Mr. Hartley's interest in the child has nothing to do with paternal feeling and everything to do with the recent inheritance he mentioned. According to the terms of his late uncle's will, the estate can only pass to legitimate male heirs. His children with his wife are all daughters." Anna felt the pieces click into place. Hartley didn't want a son. He wanted an heir he could claim without destroying his marriage. William was nothing but a means to wealth. Judge Patterson's decision was swift and decisive. The court finds that the adoption of William Monroe by Jack and Anna Monroe was completed in good faith and in the best interests of the child. Mr. Hartley's challenge is denied. As the gavel fell, Anna felt her knees go weak with relief. Jack's arm came around her, steady and strong, while William babbled happily between them. Hartley left town that afternoon, but not before making one last threat. "This isn't over." he hissed as he passed them on the courthouse steps. "Yes, it is," Jack said quietly. "You come near my family again, and court'll be the least of your worries." That evening, as they sat on their own porch with William playing at their feet, the ranch looked different to Anna. Not just a hiding place for two broken people, but a real home. A place where love mattered more than blood. Where family was chosen rather than assigned. "We did it," she said softly. "You did it," Jack corrected. "Standing up to him alone like that. You're stronger than you know, Anna Monroe." It was the first time he'd called her by her married name outside of legal necessity. The sound of it made her heart skip. "We're all Monroes now," she said, scooping up William and making him giggle. "A real family." "The best kind," Jack agreed, his hand finding hers in the gathering dusk. "The kind that fights for each other." The truth came in a worn leather satchel, carried by a woman whose face bore the marks of hard living and harder choices. She arrived on a sweltering June afternoon, 3 weeks after the court had ruled in their favor. Anna was in the garden with William propped in a basket beside her, teaching him the names of vegetables he was still too young to understand. "Mrs. Monroe." The woman stood at the gate, travel-dusty and thin. "My name is Margaret Walsh. I've come about the Hartley matter." Anna's hands tightened on the hoe. "The court already decided—" "I know." Margaret's voice was tired but determined. "I'm not here to cause trouble. The opposite, in fact. I have information you need to hear." Jack appeared from the barn, drawn by the unfamiliar voice. He positioned himself protectively near Anna and William, studying the stranger with wary eyes. "I was Rose Sullivan's friend in Kansas," Margaret continued. "We worked together at an establishment in Dodge City." Her cheeks flushed, but she held their gazes steadily. "I promised Rose I'd look after her if anything happened. I failed in that, but maybe I can help protect her boy." "Come inside," Anna said after a moment. "You look like you could use some water." They gathered around the kitchen table, William gurgling happily in Anna's lap, while Margaret sipped her water with obvious relief. "Charles Hartley is worse than you know," she began. "He's not just an adulterer. He's built his fortune on ruining young women. Promises them marriage, gets them with child, then disappears. Some he pays off. Others—" She paused, pain flickering across her features. "Rose wasn't his first or his last." "But why come forward now?" Jack asked. Margaret reached into her satchel, producing a bundle of letters. "Because he's done it again. A young woman in Denver, daughter of a banker. Only this time the girl's father has power and wants justice. He hired investigators, and they've been tracking down Hartley's victims." She spread the letters on the table, testimonies from women across 3 states, all telling similar stories. Promises of marriage, abandonment, some with children left behind. "There's going to be a trial," Margaret continued. "Criminal charges for fraud and abandonment. The prosecutor wants witnesses. I thought you should know, in case Hartley tries something desperate." Anna looked down at William, innocent and trusting in her arms. "All those children. Most ended up in orphanages," Margaret said quietly. "Or worse, Rose was determined hers would have better. That's why she walked through that storm to find you. She'd heard about you in town, the childless woman and the widowed rancher. She thought maybe you'd understand about wanting what you couldn't have." "She chose us," Anna whispered, the revelation hitting her like a physical blow. "It wasn't chance. She chose us for William." Margaret nodded. She used her last strength to give him what she never had, a real family. That night, after Margaret had gone to stay in town before continuing to Denver, Jack and Anna sat on the porch watching the stars emerge. William slept between them in his basket, one small hand curled around Anna's finger. "Changes things, doesn't it?" Jack said finally, "knowing she picked us on purpose." "Makes the responsibility heavier," Anna agreed, "but also more sacred somehow. We weren't just convenient. We were chosen. Like we chose each other," Jack said quietly. Anna turned to look at him, surprised by the emotion in his voice. In the months since she'd arrived, they'd built something together, partnership, friendship, family, but there'd been boundaries too, careful distances maintained out of respect for what they'd each lost. "Jack, that first day," he interrupted, "when you stood there dripping on my porch, looking like a drowned cat but too proud to show it, I thought I was doing my Christian duty, taking in Sam Whitmore's cast-off sister. But you changed everything. This house, the ranch, me. You brought life back to dead things. We saved each other, Anna said softly. And then William saved us both. Jack reached across the basket to take her free hand. I know we started this as an arrangement, business, but somewhere along the way, it became real, Anna finished. The preacher's been asking when we're going to do things proper, Jack continued. Have a real wedding, not just papers. I've been putting him off because I wanted to be sure that is, I didn't want you to feel obligated. Jack Monroe, Anna interrupted. Are you proposing to me? Even in the darkness, she could see his ears redden. Doing it badly, seems like. Then let me help. She squeezed his hand. Yes, yes to a real wedding. Yes to being proper husband and wife. Yes to raising our son together. Yes to whatever comes next. The kiss that followed was their first, tender and tentative, full of promise and healing. William chose that moment to wake, burbling happily as if in approval. 2 weeks later, they stood before Reverend Phillips again, this time with the whole town as witness. Anna wore a new dress, pale blue cotton with tiny flowers that Jack had surprised her with from the mercantile. Jack had trimmed his hair and beard, looking younger and lighter than she'd ever seen him. William, held by Mrs. Morrison, watched the proceedings with wide eyes. Do you, Jackson Monroe, take Anna Whitmore to be your lawfully wedded wife? Reverend Phillips asked, smiling broadly. I do, Jack said firmly, his eyes never leaving Anna's face. Again. Laughter rippled through the congregation. And do you, Anna Whitmore, take Jackson Monroe to be your lawfully wedded husband? I do, Anna said, her voice clear and strong. Forever this time. As they exchanged rings, simple bands Jack had commissioned from the blacksmith, Anna felt the last walls around her heart crumble. This was her family, her home, her future. Not the one she dreamed of as a young bride, but something richer and more complex, forged in hardship and chosen with open eyes. I now pronounce you, properly and officially, husband and wife, Reverend Phillips declared. Mr. Monroe, you may kiss your bride. This kiss was different from their first, confident, joyful, a promise sealed before God and community. The church erupted in cheers, and William added his own happy shriek to the celebration. At the reception in the church hall, even former skeptics offered congratulations. Mrs. Henderson pressed a quilt into Anna's hands. For the little one, she said gruffly. Every child needs a warm blanket. Marcus Cole shook Jack's hand firmly. About time you made it official. That woman's the best thing that ever happened to your ranch. To me, Jack corrected. Best thing that happened to me. As the afternoon wore on, a dusty rider appeared with news from Denver. Charles Hartley had been arrested, charged with fraud, abandonment, and bigamy. His wife had filed for divorce, his assets were frozen, and he faced years in prison. It's over, Anna breathed, clutching the telegram. He can't hurt us anymore. Was never going to let him, Jack said, pulling her close. But I'm glad it settled legal-like. That evening, as they drove home in the wagon with William sleeping between them, Anna marveled at how much had changed since that morning Pete Sullivan had dropped her at the gate. The ranch spread before them in the golden light, no longer a place of exile, but a true home. What are you thinking? Jack asked, noting her thoughtful expression. About Rose, Anna admitted, wishing she could see this, know that William is loved and safe. She knows, Jack said quietly. Somewhere, somehow, she knows. They pulled up to the house to find a surprise. The Morrisons and several other neighbors had decorated the porch with wildflowers and ribbons. A banner read, Welcome home, Mr. and Mrs. Monroe. When did they? Anna began, then laughed. We've been gone 3 hours. Good neighbors, Jack said, but his voice was thick with emotion. That night, in the bedroom they now shared as true husband and wife, Anna stood by the window looking out at the star-filled sky. Jack came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. No regrets? He asked softly. None, she assured him. You? Only that it took us so long to get here. From the next room came William's soft breathing, the sound that had become the rhythm of their lives. Their son, chosen by providence and sacrifice, sealed to them by law and love. "The ladies in town used to pity me," Anna said. "The barren woman. Now I have a husband who loves me and a son who fills my heart. Let them talk about that." They are," Jack chuckled. "Tom Brennan said the betting pool at the saloon had us married proper by Christmas. Reverend Phillips cleaned up, apparently." Anna turned in his arms, smiling up at him. "A gambling preacher?" "A romantic one. He said he knew from the first Sunday you came to church together that God had plans for us." "Did he now?" "Must have. Else how do you explain all this? You, me, William, broken pieces that somehow make a whole—" Anna reached up to touch his face, this good man who'd opened his wounded heart to her and their son. "Maybe that's what family is, broken pieces choosing to fit together." "Then here's to broken pieces," Jack said, kissing her gently, "and to the love that mends them." Outside, a wolf howled somewhere in the distance, but inside their home, all was warmth and safety and belonging. The woman who couldn't bear children, the man who'd lost his, and the baby who'd needed them both. They'd found their way to each other across loss and loneliness, creating something beautiful from their scars. And in the morning, they'd wake to William's cries, to chores and challenges and all the ordinary miracles of their extraordinary life. But tonight, they held each other in the darkness, complete at last, a family forged by choice and sealed by love. The joke was supposed to be on them, the barren bride sent to the broken cowboy, but love, it seemed, would have the last laugh after all. The harvest sun painted Cedar Ridge in shades of gold as Anna guided the wagon down Main Street. William balanced on her hip, now a sturdy toddler of 18 months with Jack's serious gray eyes and Rose's gentle smile. The town that had once whispered behind her back now called out greetings, tipped hats, and cooed over the boy who'd captured everyone's hearts. "Morning, Mrs. Monroe," Marcus Cole called from the Mercantile. "That boy gets bigger every time I see him." "Growing like prairie grass," Anna agreed, shifting William to her other hip. "Jack says he'll be helping with the cattle by next summer." "Wouldn't surprise me none. Got his daddy's way with animals already." His daddy. The words still made Anna's heart swell. Not by blood, but by choice, by love, by 1,000 small moments that had knitted them into a family. She completed her errands, flour, coffee, fabric for new shirts, aware of the conversations that stirred in her wake. But they were different now, these whispers. Miracle, really, how that boy brought them together. Never seen Jack Monroe smile so much. Anna looks 10 years younger these days. At the post office, she found a letter waiting, addressed in unfamiliar handwriting. She opened it there, one hand steady on William as he played with her collar buttons. "Dear Mrs. Monroe," it began. "You don't know me, but I knew Rose Sullivan. My name is Catherine Mills, and I run a home for women in difficult circumstances in Denver. Rose stayed with us before William was born. She spoke of you often in her final days, not by name, but she knew about you. The childless woman married to the widowed rancher. She said God had shown her where her baby belonged. I wanted you to know that her choice was deliberate and made with love. She gave William to the mother he was meant to have." Anna read the letter twice, tears blurring her vision. Even now, revelations about Rose's journey continued to surface, each one confirming what Anna had come to believe, that some families were written in the stars long before their members found each other. "Mama?" William patted her cheek, concerned by her tears. "Happy tears, sweet boy," she assured him, kissing his forehead. "Just happy tears." The ride home was peaceful, William dozing against her shoulder as the wagon rolled through the autumn landscape. The ranch came into view, and Anna's breath caught as it always did at the transformation. Fresh paint gleamed on the house and barn. The garden, now expanded, showed neat rows of vegetables ready for harvest. New fences marched straight and true across the pastures where healthy cattle grazed. But it was the small touches that spoke of home. Curtains in every window, flowers blooming along the porch, a swing Jack had hung from the big oak tree. And there, by the barn, Jack himself, looking up from shoeing a horse to wave at their approach. "How are the ladies at church?" he asked, helping her down from the wagon. Full of questions about the harvest social. "I volunteered us to help set up." "Course you did." But he was smiling, that easy smile that came so readily now. What else? She handed him the letter, watched his face change as he read, saw the emotion he still struggled to show work its way across his features. She knew, he said finally. All along, she knew. "Papa!" William demanded, reaching for Jack. "Come here, son." Jack took the boy, tossing him gently in the air to make him giggle. "Want to see the new calf?" They walked together toward the barn, a family like any other, unless you knew their story. Unless you understood the miracle of second chances and chosen love. That evening, as Anna prepared supper, she heard voices from the porch, Jack teaching William to whistle. Patient repetition met with toddler determination. Through the window, she watched them, these two who'd become her whole world. A year ago, she'd been certain her life was over, that her worth had died with her womb's capability. The women of Cedar Ridge had thought so too, shipping her off like damaged goods to a man they assumed was equally worthless. Such cruel arithmetic. Two broken halves they'd thought would cancel each other out. Instead, those broken pieces had formed something stronger than wholeness. A widower who'd thought his heart was buried had learned to love again. A woman who'd believed motherhood was lost to her had found it in unexpected ways. And a baby who might have grown up in an orphanage was being raised by parents who cherished him all the more for being chosen. "Supper's ready," she called. They came in together, William riding on Jack's shoulders, both of them grinning. The table that had once hosted silent, awkward meals now rang with laughter and conversation. William babbled excitedly about the calf, mixing real words with toddler nonsense, while his parents listened as if he were reciting Shakespeare. After dinner, as was their custom, Jack read from the Bible while Anna mended and William played with the wooden horse Jack had finally finished carving, not for Timothy, but for the living child who'd helped heal that wound. "He setteth the solitary in families," Jack read, his voice deep and sure. "He bringeth out those which are bound with chains." Anna looked up from her sewing to find him watching her. "Psalm 68, she said softly. Seemed fitting. Later, after William was asleep in his crib, the one Jack had built with his own hands, they sat on the porch watching the stars emerge. It was their favorite time, these quiet moments when the day's work was done and tomorrow's had yet to begin. "I've been thinking," Jack said, taking her hand, "about adding onto the house, another bedroom or two." Anna's heart skipped. "Oh? Well, William won't be the baby forever, and the Morrison boys are always underfoot. Might be nice to have room for expansion." "Jack Monroe, are you saying—" "I'm saying this family's got room to grow, if God sees fit, natural or otherwise." He squeezed her hand. "What we've built here, Anna, it's good, strong, got love enough to share." Anna thought of all the children who might need what William had found. A home, parents, a chance at belonging. The ladies in town would talk. Let 'em. They've been wrong about us from the start. It was true. The gossips who'd sent her away as a cruel joke had watched her return transformed. Not because she'd borne a child, she hadn't, but because she'd become something they'd never thought possible. A mother without giving birth. A wife without conventional marriage. A woman whose worth had nothing to do with her womb. "I love you," she said, the words still feeling new and precious. "Have I told you that today?" "Only a dozen times." He pulled her close. "Tell me again." She did, and then they sat in comfortable silence, watching the night deepen over their land. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges. There was always work on a ranch, always something needing tending. But tonight, they were complete. A year and a half ago, she'd arrived here in shame, believing herself worthless. The town had sent her as a mockery, a barren woman for a broken man. But God, it seemed, had a sense of humor. Or perhaps just a deeper understanding of what made a family than the good folks of Cedar Ridge. "We should go to town tomorrow," Jack said eventually. "Show them what their joke became. We go to town all the time. No, I mean really go to that harvest social. Dance with my wife, show off our boy, let them all see what we've built from their cast-offs." Anna smiled in the darkness. "That's not very Christian of you, Jack Monroe." "Maybe not, but it's human. And I'm proud of us, Anna. Proud of what we've made here." So was she. Proud of the home they'd built, the love they'd nurtured, the family they'd chosen. The woman who couldn't have children now had a son who filled her days with joy. The man who'd lost everything had found purpose again. The baby who'd arrived on their doorstep had brought with him the gift of redemption. "All right," she agreed. "We'll go to the social. We'll dance and laugh and show them all that the best families aren't always made the usual way." "Amen to that," Jack murmured. Inside, William stirred in his sleep, calling out. Anna rose to go to him, but Jack caught her hand. "I've got him," he said, kissing her gently. "You rest." She watched him go, this man who'd opened his wounded heart to love again. In a few minutes, she'd join them, maybe sing the lullaby that always soothed William back to sleep. But for now, she sat on the porch of the home they'd made, breathing in the night air that smelled of coming rain and distant flowers. The joke had been on her, they'd all thought. The barren bride sent to the broken cowboy. But Anna knew better now. The joke had been on them. All those proper folks who thought they understood worth and value, who measured a woman by her womb and a man by his losses. Because here, 20 miles from their judgment, a different truth had taken root. Love wasn't about blood or perfection or fitting into expected patterns. It was about choosing each other, again and again. It was about building something beautiful from broken pieces. It was about finding your family in unexpected places and holding on tight when you did. From inside came the low rumble of Jack's voice, singing the lullaby she'd taught him. William's fussing quieted, soothed by the sound of his father's love. Anna smiled, rose, and went to join her family. The barren woman had come home with a child, after all. Not in the way anyone expected, but in the way that mattered. She'd come home with love, with purpose, with a future bright as prairie stars. And that was the greatest miracle of all. Thank you for listening to this story from the Wild West. If you enjoyed this tale of love, family, and second chances, please let me know where you're listening from. I'd love to connect with you. Don't forget to subscribe to the From Wild West channel and share your thoughts about Anna and Jack's journey in the comments below. What touched your heart the most about their story?